Well, it is a big trade alert in the NFC West. Maybe you could even call it an arms race. The Rams have made a move for Trent McDuffie, all-pro cornerback whom 49ers fans should be very familiar with if you care to remember the Super Bowl at the end of the 2023 season. He was a key player in that game, playing the slot cornerback and deployed on two important blitzes from Steve Spagnuolo back in that 2023 Chiefs win in overtime. Rams sending quite a bit over to Kansas City. So we're going to go through the dynamics of this trade, what it means for the Rams, what it means for the NFC West, and what might be on tap for the 49ers, because we've got another Trent update on top of that as well. But the Chiefs are going to receive pick number 29, a first-rounder from the Rams, who owned 2 first-rounders in this draft, thanks to the Falcons. Talk about that in a bit. So the one, pick number 29, a 5th-rounder and a 6th-rounder in this year's draft, and a 3rd-rounder in next season's draft. So quite the haul for Trent McDuffie, who's entering his 5th-year option season, salary of about $13 million. The Rams do plan to extend him, and he might become one of the highest-paid cornerbacks in the entire league. Kansas City has not paid corners in the past. L'Jarius Sneed, Charvarius Ward, they let both of those guys walk. They also don't really like to pay wide receivers. They let Tyreek Hill walk for a little bit bigger haul than this one, but this is a big haul. So Kansas City obviously likes to keep the team young around Patrick Mahomes, and they have paid some other positions. They most recently paid Nick Bolton. You could really question that. I don't know if that prevented them from paying Trent McDuffie, but the wide receiver and the cornerback positions, Kansas City has generally made moves like this. When you look at the Tyreek Hill trade and now you look at the Trent McDuffie trade. The Rams, meanwhile, they traded for Jalen Ramsey, and obviously that worked out for them several years ago. I'm in Tennessee right now. This is where Jalen Ramsey is from. Shout out to Brentwood Academy. He went to Margot's High School, actually. Then he went on to Florida State. But they traded 2 first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey. Now they go to Trent McDuffie, and I see some parallels in the versatility at play. They used Jalen Ramsey all over the formation as a star. That was the name of the position, the star position. And that was back when they had Brandon Staley as the defensive coordinator. Then, of course, they moved to Raheem Morris, who's now the 49ers defensive coordinator. But the adaptability of the back end was the big thing for those great Rams defenses that helped spearhead a Super Bowl title in 2021. Now things are a little bit different with the Rams to where, the secondary was the Achilles heel of the defense this past year, so they needed to make some improvements there, and obviously this does that. But they have a guy named Quentin Lake, who is a safety nickel hybrid who now plays the star position, which I think opens up a lot of different positional alignments and nickel and dime packages for the secondary, especially now a secondary featuring Trent McDuffie. And what the Chiefs did, McDuffie was a slot cornerback at the start of his NFL career. In 2023, when they played the 49ers, then McDuffie was in the slot, and he was asked to blitz twice. He was asked to blitz 70 times that season by Steve Spagnuolo, which was a lot, and he was a very effective pass rusher, had 19 pressures on that season. But the one that really derailed the 49ers was on the 3rd and 4, when San Francisco was driving with the game tied, and they brought Trent McDuffie in off the nickel blitz, and it disrupted Brock Purdy. The throw was incomplete. San Francisco had to settle for the field goal, and then Kansas City was able to tie the game up. So in essence, it was a Super Bowl saving play for the Kansas City Chiefs back in that 2023 Super Bowl. The year after L'Jarius Sneed left Kansas City, they moved Trent McDuffie basically full-time to the outside. And that meant that he didn't see nearly the same amount of blitzes coming in from the slot. And I think that Kansas City realized after a season of that in 2024 that we're wasting some of this guy's versatility. This guy's a really, really good pass rusher. He's great at stripping the ball. He's had, I think, 7 forced fumbles over the course of the past couple years. And if you're playing him only exclusively on the outside, you lose a little bit or a lot of what Trent McDuffie can bring to the table. So we saw more of a hybrid role again in 2024 and 25, where it was about 600 snaps on the outside, wide corner, 300 snaps on the inside. And I think that the Rams really like that because what they're trying to do is be as versatile as possible with this secondary. Now, again, it has to be emphasized that the Rams were not particularly good on the back end this year. They had two big weaknesses. Special teams, obviously, that ended up truly derailing them. And I would think that you could argue that the pass defense did too. Sam Darnold picked them apart. Hell, Mac Jones picked apart the Rams twice this past season. And the 49ers were down to a skeleton crew of weapons. Even in the game that the Rams won at Levi Stadium, the 49ers scored 4 touchdowns. Mac Jones threw for plenty of yards. It wasn't because the secondary stopped the 49ers. It was mainly because the 49ers couldn't run the football against the Rams' defensive front. So, this was the best division in NFL history last year, the NFC West. The Seahawks won the Super Bowl with a supercharged defense, an awesome special teams unit, and an offense that with Sam Darnold and JSN didn't turn the ball over a single time in the postseason. And they beat the Rams on the way to doing that. The Rams, meanwhile, have a little window here for the end of Matthew Stafford's career to where they set things up really well for Matthew Stafford last year. They had a really good offensive line. They had a top 5 run game. The defense ranked really well, but it did have the issue of the secondary that we're talking about right now. Great receiving core for the Rams, right? So you have an aging quarterback, but obviously a capable quarterback. And you've rolled out the red carpet for him, and you've tried to build as good of a team around him as possible. You've identified one of the main weaknesses, which was pass defense, and that's why they trade for Trent McDuffie. It's like F them picks mode that we saw from Les Snead back in the run-up to the 2021 Super Bowl when they went out and they got Jalen Ramsey, and they got a lot of players, obviously. Von Miller was the cherry on top for the Rams ahead of the trade deadline, and then they did win that Super Bowl in the 2021 season. So the Rams are trying to maximize the Stafford window before they're going to have to switch quarterbacks. They're trying to make the team as good as possible around Matthew Stafford. They also want to specifically target JSN of the Seattle Seahawks. I think the 49ers already have in their secondary, they have obviously Deommodore Lenoir, who's been fine against JSN, and they have Upton Stout there now, so they've loaded up a little bit on the secondary. For the 49ers, the needs are bigger, I think, on the defensive front and at linebacker and at safety than they are at cornerback per se. So different teams, different needs, and it's going to be interesting to see the 49ers as they enter this free agency period, exactly how they solve some of the holes on their roster, because they're different than the ones that the Rams currently have. It was funny because just yesterday, Les Snead, who's the general manager of the Rams, talked about the willingness to spend a first-round pick for an impact player. And then when he was pressed on it a little bit, he said, it would be nice maybe to get an all-pro in the secondary. I think that could help our football team. He probably already had this trade in the works with the Kansas City Chiefs. Apparently the New York Giants and the Chiefs were the two teams who were in the running for Trent McDuffie. Now, if you think about how the 49ers and the Seahawks and, even the Cardinals, we can talk about them, how the NFC West is going to play against this. Well, the Rams are obviously investing in their secondary. It was a weakness last year. The counter to investing in a secondary for an opposing team is to invest in a wide receiver room. And according to Albert Breer, the 49ers are reportedly among the teams expected to pursue Alec Pierce if he hits the open market, and even if he does command $25 to $30 million per year. That is according to Albert Breer. That just came in. The natural thought process, right, when the Rams load up on DBs, obviously the Seattle Seahawks have a good secondary. They had historically good defense this year. The biggest problem for the 49ers offensively in 2025, and I would say even heading back into the 2024 season, was their lack of separation. And that goes hand in hand with having to face good defensive backs. It also goes hand in hand with good pass rushes, but you've got to have guys who can win one-on-one against good DBs. Alec Pierce, because the Colts had to use the transition tag on Daniel Jones, is probably going to head into free agency. He even said in a recent interview that he likes Indianapolis, but he feels almost the responsibility to see what's out there. Well, the 49ers might be one of the suitors. He said this on the Kay Adams show. I love Indy, but at this point, I've kind of earned the right to explore free agency, see what is out there. So the 49ers, we said this all the way back to where the 49ers played the Indianapolis Colts in December, right ahead of Christmas. We saw Alec Pierce. I was watching a lot of the Colts tape to get ready for that football game. It's like, this guy is fast. It's a 4'3", 4'4", kind of 40 guy. He's long. He can block. It was almost like that this could be a dream 49ers addition. But can you get him at a reasonable price, since the receiver market and free agency tends to be overinflated? I think he's still an ascending player. We saw him score against the 49ers early in that game on December 22nd. And yes, there is Brandon Ayuk money for the 49ers to be able to shovel around now, because they were able to get out of the $27 million in 2026 guarantees. Now, we talk about Trent McDuffie. We can also talk about Trent Williams. According to the latest report, no progress yet on the contractual adjustment for Trent Williams heading into this 2026 season. Obviously something that the 49ers need to resolve one way or the other. I've talked about a potential trade. I've talked about Rasheed Walker, and I've talked about Trent to Houston and a bunch of crazy stuff, just as, you know, a thought-provoking exercise about how the 49ers want to move forward at that left tackle position. In all likelihood, they thread the needle with Trent Williams, and they get something that could also lower his salary cap hit in this 2026 season. If you do that, and if you can also restructure Nick Bosa in a way that's not an extension, that's just a standard conversion of base salary to signing bonus. If you took a look at my roster builder that we came out with yesterday up on the San Francisco Standard, you could see how the 49ers could potentially afford some of these more expensive moves. And Alec Pierce is one of the receivers that you can sign in the roster builder. So the 49ers are, I think, you know, it's funny because I logged on to X right now. I was at the dentist's, and then I left the dentist and I saw the trade happen, Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs to the Rams. I log on to X, and of course it's the usual suspects. It's emotional fans and emotional fan accounts like, 49ers have to do something ASAP. No, they don't. The last thing the 49ers need to do is make an emotional reaction to how a rival is building its team and divert course from what has been a very successful team building formula for the 49ers. Again, they beat the Seahawks when they were relatively healthy last year, and they beat the Rams last year when they weren't healthy. So it goes to show you that the 49ers built a robust and deep roster, and they're very well coached. I can go into the track record of the 49ers in the years before, heading to the postseason, beating the Rams way more often than the Rams beat them, beating the Seahawks too. I mean, in those years, in 2021 to 2023, or even up into 2024, the 49ers mainly had the Seahawks number. But I could talk about San Francisco's muscle flexing roster in all of those seasons. Obviously, they had to run a reset due to age and the salary cap last offseason, but they have proven very competent in building a roster, doing it their way, making a ton of trades away, just like the Rams have made trades. The 49ers will make the moves that they see fit, and we're going to analyze and help kind of paint a picture around the strategy when those happen. Just the fact that the Rams traded for Trent McDuffie at a position that they really needed doesn't increase urgency for the 49ers to run around like chickens with their heads cut off like people on the internet and make moves that they're going to regret. You have to stay measured. You're not reactionary in this league. You expected the Rams to try to improve their secondary because that was the weakness of this team. And by that stretch, I expect the 49ers to try to improve their wide receiver position because that was the weakness of this team. I also expect them to attain a good chunk of that improvement through a return to health. And that's really that they were injured at an almost record level when it came to their A-list players last year. They need guys like Ricky Pearsall to be healthy because you cannot keep on going back to the store and buying new goods. Sometimes the goods that you already have in the house have to come through for you, and that's where the 49ers are going to focus. But the Rams, I would expect them to continue working on their special teams. They better, because they were terrible there last year. On their secondary, they weren't good there last year. The 49ers need to work on their separation at wide receiver. The 49ers need to make sure that the pass rush, which finished last in the league with 20 sacks, is revitalized heading into the 2026 season. But so many of these things with the 49ers we can tie back to the lack of health last year, which is why you go back to week 1 when they beat the Seattle Seahawks, when they were decently healthy, and you say, okay, that was the blueprint. The blueprint revolved around this team having decent availability, and you fill the holes in as part of a larger picture understanding that there will be at least somewhat of a return to health in 2026. And if there's not, then you're totally screwed. There's been no team as beaten up as the 2025 49ers in NFL history that was able to win 13 games. So at some point, you could maximize this and stretch it out, and that's a credit to the 49ers and how well they've been built and how well they've been coached and the types of players that they have. But they maxed it out in 2025, and they're going to need better health moving forward into 2026 to do anything. And that's before we even consider any of the additions that might come in for the 49ers over the course of the next couple weeks. The legal tampering window is opening on Monday. Then the new league year opens up on Wednesday. We expect the 49ers to release Brandon Ayuk, a post-June 1st designation. The Max Crosby sweepstakes will continue, maybe even through free agency up until the NFL draft. As of right now, the Raiders are not budging when it comes to their asking price of 2 first-round picks and an impact player. I think that the entire league thinks that's too high. Will somebody jump on this? I know people are saying, well, the Rams don't care about their first-round picks, so maybe the Rams, what is it, number 13 that they got from the Atlanta Falcons? Maybe we see LA move in on Max Crosby. Maybe we don't. Well, it's going to be supply and demand. Price is going to adjust. I know that Jonathan Grenard is now available on that trade market from the Minnesota Vikings, and that could be a player that both the 49ers and the Rams are interested in. But for San Francisco, the pass rush is definitely a much bigger issue than that cornerback position was last season. I am going to answer some questions if I can see them here on the screen. We are out on the farm here in Tennessee. You guys can see the new setup. Also got the new car. Who wants to see the car? Maybe I won't show you guys yet. I'll show you guys the car as a surprise in a different video. The car right now, or I'm holding it as we speak, but the tripod was on top of the car. We had a look down at the barn, some nice trees. I don't know, the horses are in the barn right now, so no horses for this video. Idiotic comments will not be acknowledged. Emotional comments will not be acknowledged. Only smart comments will be acknowledged. You guys have been through this drill enough times to not have really stupid takes, but I'm sure they'll still be there because people get really emotional. But guys, the Rams had a weakness. They traded to try to improve that weakness. The 49ers have made just about as many trades as the Rams have made over the course of the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch tenure. They made 4 trades last year. They made massive ones like the one for Trent Williams, for Christian McCaffrey. They'll make moves in their due time. They have a salary cap situation to work around, since they've also paid more players than any other team in the NFL as far as A-list money goes over the course of the past 10 years. So they have to operate diligently and within their constraints, and they have to get this team younger. And what they're doing is something that I think has gone toe-to-toe very well with the Rams over the course of the past 10 years. I mean, we just look at the head-to-head record ever since the 49ers built this up. By 2019, they were a viable team, and the head-to-head record has been fine against the Rams. So you give credit to Les Snead for attacking a weakness that his team has, and now we'll see how the 49ers attack the weaknesses of their football team moving forward. Anything more emotional. Anything calling for immediate action is just not smart, and it's not the way the 49ers are going to operate, and it's not productive to discuss in those terms. Immediate action as a response to another team's trade is just about the dumbest business strategy that I could think of, and the 49ers are not going to operate on those terms. Mike says it's laggy when I move around, so maybe I won't move around. Maybe we'll keep the mic in one spot. Mike Garofalo says, I have my screen right here, so I want to see what Mike says. Trent Williams thinks he has still 2 or 3 more years left in his body. There's still work that needs to be done there in the next couple days to make sure that Williams does not hit the market. He still believes he's got at least 2 or 3 good years left in that body. Yeah, well, Trent wants to play until he's 40 years old. So they're trying to thread the same needle that they had to thread in 2024, except this time there is an option bonus of $10 million that is due within the next month. So the deadline pressure is moved forward a little bit. And I think that Trent played really well last season. He fought through some injuries for the 49ers last season. They would need an answer at left tackle if Trent isn't on this team next year, in which case, you know, that's why we talk about Rasheed Walker coming on free agency. That's a good Green Bay Packers offensive tackle. I don't think that you typically see tackles of that caliber hit free agency. So it could be an immediate plug-and-play option for the 49ers since he has been in a similar scheme. All right, I'm ready for some questions, Mike. Mike, why don't you send me some questions on WhatsApp if there are some good ones, and I can answer them because it's really hard for me to see the screen right now. Greetings from a Leeds United fan, I'm reading in the comments section. Hello, I loved Chapman Road a couple years ago. Somebody said Trent is too old to collect top-tier A-list money. Well, I don't know if age is the primary variable here. I think performance should be the primary variable. He was still a top 3, top 4 tackle this past season. So what do you define, you know, A-list money as? Do you define it as top 1 money, top 2 money, top 5 money, top 10 money? I think that that's open for interpretation. You got to be a little bit more specific. Ready for more questions. David, can we get your realistic wish list as it stands right now? Well, are you talking about receiver, or are you talking about, I think everything is realistic at some point in the NFL. It just depends on how much you want to pay for it, right? So you've got to spread resources around to keep a roster balanced. But if you're talking about receiver, since we're talking about Trent McDuffie covering receiver, would be a lower cost option. Now, it would be a mid-tier option. I don't want to say lower cost. That implies they're getting him under 10 million. You're not going to get Romeo Doubs under 10 million. Jalen Naylor, Romeo Doubs, those are both mid-tier wide receiving options for the 49ers. Mike Evans, probably a little pricier. Definitely keep an eye on him if he doesn't re-sign with Tampa Bay. And then, of course, Alec Pierce. It has made a lot of sense that the 49ers would be interested in Alec Pierce, given the skill set, given the ability to block, given the speed that I think they've lacked on the outside, especially with Brandon Ayuk done after, week 7 of the 2024 season. But my concern has been the price for Alec Pierce. Now, money is opening up with Brandon Ayuk on his way out. That's been, you know, the one break for the 49ers in this case. That they haven't owed him the 2026 money, so maybe they do swing a little bit higher at that wide receiver position. They also need guys on the inside of the building to take a step up, and that's Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins. And of course, you need Ricky Pearsall to stay healthy, because Ricky was really damn good over the first 4 weeks when he was healthy before the PCL tear last year. Of course you can backload Alec Pierce. I have a question about backload. You're going to backload everybody's contract. But backloading only means that you owe more against the cap in future seasons. And the bills for other guys are going up in future seasons as well. Like, the backloading strategy is just a de facto strategy that a team like the 49ers has embraced with 100% of its contracts because the salary cap rises every single year, so you might as well put more of the expenses into future seasons. But you can't look at it as something that you could just do with 20 different signings a year. You can't sign 20 different A-list guys a year and then expect the team to be sustainable in 2026 and 27 and 28 and so on and so forth. You have to make sure that the sink does not overflow in future seasons with the backloaded hits. So Brock Purdy, for example, $24 million cap hit this year, those hits are going to increase over $50 million in future years. You better have the money in future years, even with the increasing cap, to be able to run a team. Otherwise, you're going to go into salary cap hell. And those of you who are impatient right now would get even more angry with things. So that's why the lifeblood of every team is the NFL draft. You've got to hit on enough of those draft picks to keep things cost controlled and keep the roster fast, because this is also a young man's league. Jordan Schultz says something about the offensive line. The position set to get crazy money next week, per sources, is the offensive line. And besides Tyler Linderbaum, some names about to get paid big time include Rasheed Walker, who I'm telling you guys about, maybe the heir apparent to Trent Williams, David Edwards, Jermaine Eluemunor, Chris Paul, Zion Johnson, Ed Ingram, Elijah Vera Tucker, Dylan Parham, Connor McGovern, Cade Mays, among others. It is very clear several teams are in on the same players, which will drive the price way up. And I think that Trent Williams is trying to capitalize on that as well. We know that this deal was going to be revisited this year if Trent was still playing well, and he is, because it's a lame duck year, no guaranteed money left, although $33 million in cash flow is no small chunk of change for Trent Williams this year. I suspect that the 49ers would love to convert, obviously, base salary into signing bonus so they could lower the salary cap hit, prorate some of that money out into the future for Trent Williams. I also suspect that maybe they wouldn't mind lowering the cash flow a little bit this year if it's too short term of a commitment from Trent Williams, or getting more team control, which a lot of people, they don't realize this because they think, oh, well, he's getting older. Why do you want more team control? Well, team control is valuable. Team control is an asset. So if they get more team control, maybe then they would be okay with upping the cash flow with a signing bonus here in 2026. But the bottom line is that you're threading a needle if you're the 49ers and you're Trent Williams, and it's a needle that becomes more and more difficult to thread with each subsequent season, because he's getting older and older, and you've got to make sure that you've balanced out the team interest, the team risk, with the term of the contract, and obviously with the amount of money that you're putting out on the table right now for somebody like Trent Williams. So offensive line, expect those guys to get paid. Hell, expect everybody to make a lot of money in free agency. That's generally the time when teams have to break the bank, literally, and that's when they start wishing that the draft would have gone better for them in previous seasons so they don't have to extend themselves all that much. The Rams are going to have to pay a lot for Trent McDuffie in this extension, but the Rams, up until about last year, had the lowest defensive spend in all football. When they reset their roster, and they did it like the 49ers did back in 2000, the Rams did this in 2023. The 49ers did it in 2025. There was a lot of roster clearance, right? The Rams let Leonard Floyd go just like the 49ers did last year. They traded Jalen Ramsey away. Then Aaron Donald retired. By the time the 2024 rolled around, the Rams had the lowest defensive spend in all football. They had poured quite a bit of monetary resources into the offensive side of the ball, much at all into the defensive side of the ball, and it kind of cleared the deck for them to then be able to spend on a Trent McDuffie when the time was right. And the time is right now because the defensive line that they drafted, it's almost all homegrown, has matured. They realize that's a strength of the team. I think the linebackers, led by Nate Landman, who made some money last year, they have also strengthened for the Rams. And now they're looking at the secondary being that last defensive weakness. Then, since you haven't spent all that much money on it in recent years, you can go out and make the big investment. The trade for Trent McDuffie, and now they're going to pay Trent McDuffie that contract. The best way for the 49ers to counter is to make sure that that receiving room has some better separation ability once this 2026 season comes along. All right, guys, thanks for watching. So long from the farm. Next time, maybe we'll show you guys the new car, but we'll see you very, very soon.